Greetings. Glad that you can be with me today as we look at the sermon for the First Methodist Church in Oswego, Kansas for May 8th, 2022. We might also say it is Mother's Day. So I'd like to wish all our mothers a happy Mother's Day and thank you for all that you have done for us, are doing for us, and will do for us. Although we also remember our mothers, those that have gone on before us, and also the ones that we currently have, and those that are mothers right now, um, caring for their children. Today we're going to be looking at a passage from Second Timothy. Paul is writing a letter to his friend Timothy, who is the pastor of the church in Ephesus. He's a young man that Paul has discipled and brought up, and he sends him two letters, actually, one First Timothy and Second Timothy, letters of instruction, also of encouragement, so that he can continue to do the job as a pastor. So from Second Timothy chapter 1, verses 3 to 7. I'm grateful to God, whom I worship with a clear conscience, as my ancestors did, when I remember you constantly in my prayers night and day. Recalling your tears, I long to see you so that I may be filled with joy. I'm reminded of your sincere faith, a faith that lived first in your grandmother Lois and your mother Eunice, and now, I'm sure, lives in you. For this reason, I remind you to rekindle the gift of God that is within you through the laying on of my hands. For God did not give us a spirit of cowardice, but rather a spirit of power and love and self discipline. May God add a blessing to the reading, the hearing, and the understanding of His Word. I chose this passage because it's Mother's Day, and there's this reference to the faith of Timothy's grandmother and mother, and how they had an influence on Timothy. And we stop and think, that for a lot of us, mothers are very influential in our faith, in helping instruct us and help us to grow in our faith. I know that my mother took my brothers and I to Sunday school and church when we were young. So that kind of planted a seed there. And also my grandmothers, by their example in what they did and how they lived their life, not so much by what they actually said, but more by how they lived their life. They were an example for me and help us in those things. But Paul is writing this letter um, to Timothy, and one of the things he says to him, rekindle the gift of God that is within you. Rekindle the gift of God that is in you. You know, when a fire sometimes starts to die out, it burns for quite a while, and after a while there are still some maybe coals left, but the fire, is running out of fuel. Well, you don't just throw another log on the fire. Uh, Sometimes it has to be rekindled, we say, with little smaller pieces of wood, twigs, grass, straw, whatever, something to get the flames going again so that then you can put another log on the fire to keep it going. And that's kind of what uh, Paul is telling Timothy to rekindle that. And we stop and think, well, maybe Timothy's kind of getting a little burned out. He's here the pastor of this church in Ephesus, and probably things are kind of a challenge for him right there. There's lots of different reasons. We all kind of feel burned out once in a while. There are different reasons for that. It could be stress from all kinds of different things. It could be the demands that are on us. It could be the things aren't going as well as we'd like them to. Might have an illness or financial problems. All kinds of different things. And of course, this whole COVID thing right now has kind of burned a lot of people out too. We're kind of sick and tired of dealing with COVID, and they tell us that it's still not over yet. And I've read lately that there's the burnout level among pastors right now is kind of an all-time high. There's lots of pastors that have either left the ministry or there are many that are thinking about leaving the ministry. So it's kind of a stressful time there as well. Um, so it's a challenging time for us, especially not only because of COVID, but there's lots of other reasons why this is a challenging time right now. And churches, um, kind of like people, churches um, have sometimes the burnout type thing comes along. They've been trying for all kinds of things to try to say, okay, what are we going to do? How do we keep this thing going? And it can be a challenge in that. And I know that over the last 50 years, we've been trying to figure this thing out within the United Methodist Church, especially how the attendance numbers have been going down over the last 50 years, and we try to come up with ways to, you might say, rekindle things. Now, I've been doing this. I call it a little horse and pony show, whatever you want to call it, pastoral ministry, for about 29 years now. It's hard to believe it's been that long. And I've seen lots of programs come and go over those 29 years of different things, efforts that have been made to try to get the flame to rekindle, to get the flame going again. Years ago, we had revivals. That was what we did. They would bring in an outside preacher from somewhere else, somebody that was probably pretty dynamic and a good speaker. Might even have services every day of a week. Invite all the people to come in and say, invite your friends, invite your family, bring everybody together. And at one time, it kind of worked. People would go. They'd show up at the revival and they'd hear all this stuff, and it would kind of rekindle the flame. Might bring in some new people, but it also inspired the people that were in the church to rekindle that gift, we might say, like Paul told Timothy, to be able to do the things that needed to be done. But if we look at it right now, if we tried to do something like a revival, would anybody show up? Probably not, because it's a different time. It's a different way of doing it. People are more busier these days. We got other things to do. It's not. We don't have that level of commitment, and so probably that wouldn't work. And I know that over the years, there was a thing a few years back. The United Methodist Church had this campaign. They call it "Open Hearts, Open Minds, Open Doors." Right? We were had TV ads, we had flyers, we had banners, everything was open hearts, open minds. It was kind of our catchphrase, if you will, our slogan. We have open hearts, open minds, and open doors, and we were all into that for a while, and it just kind of fizzled out. I mean, we still see it every now and then. It's still some places still have that out there, but it didn't really go much of anywhere. And so we thought, well, now we need to try something different. And I remember, a few years back, there was a thing called incubator, and I even took incubator training. Um, the idea was to have some of the pastors go through incubator, and then they would take it back to their churches and train their people in this program called incubator. And the idea was that all the churches in the conference were eventually going to be involved in incubator. Well, it too fizzled out. The problem was the people, when they went back to the churches to do it, the people weren't all that excited about it. It meant taking some time and going through the training, and anyway, it fizzled out. I kind of think about how Susan and I went to pizza place, and it was a place that has what they call a New York style pizza, thin crust, good pizza, really. And we went there and we ordered our pizza. We got it, and it's fairly thin. And Susan, like New York style pizza, you're supposed to fold it over when you eat it. You don't just eat it all, all open. She said, "Oh, you really got to fold your pizza." Well, being hard headed like I am, I refused. I'm not going to fold my pizza. I'm going to eat it the way I always eat pizza, right? Well, kind of, and the more she told me to, the more I refused to. So, in essence, I didn't do it. Well, I kind of think of that, and now that since then, anytime she asks me to do something that I don't really want to do, I say, I'm not going to fold my pizza. Become a catchphrase for us. And that's kind of the way some people are sometimes. They don't like to be told what to do. They don't want to fold their pizza. So later that kind of went away, and then there was an emphasis on leadership. Oh, all we got to do is train people to be good leaders, and have all these different workshops and programs to help people become good leaders. And that's what we need. Is we need good leaders in our churches, and then they'll revitalize our churches. Well, the trouble is a lot of our people already had leadership skills. It wasn't that they needed to become leaders; they were already leaders in the community. Some of them were, a lot of them were either retired or active, maybe teachers in the schools. They were in businesses and leading businesses. Farmers that they were already leaders. It wasn't that we needed to train them to become leaders. So anyway, that was tried, and it kind of went to the wayside. Um, in more recent years, we thought, well, what we need to do is get more involved in the community. Let's emphasize community development and take the church outside the walls of the church and into the community, and do things to bring people to get them involved. And okay, that's not a bad idea, because we do need to reach out beyond ourselves. And the church isn't just in the building, the church is out there. This is true. But the emphasis was more on doing things, helping people, feeding people. There wasn't a whole lot about the spiritual aspect of it. It was more about just doing good stuff, which is, we need to do good stuff. But somewhere along the line, we have to include the actual gospel in this. I know of one smaller church that I did this, tried to do it, and I think they may still be doing it. Every year they have a thing where they invite people to come. They're going to have a fun day, right? And have bounce houses for the kids, and they'll have a cake walk, and they have somebody come and sing music, and then they'll have hot dogs and cookies and brownies and pie and all this stuff, and a chili feed. I mean, not chili feed, but a chili cook-off. Well, it brought people to that particular event who would come and participate in that event. It it really, and of course, now everything's about bringing people into the church, but still. Anyway, so, and of course, other things that have been tried are we said, well, we got to revamp our worship services. Got to make them more exciting and more of interest to the younger folks. Okay, so we're going to start a praise band, and we'll have some more contemporary type music in the service, and we'll get some audio visuals, and have a projector and a screen, make it more up to date, more modern, so that we can bring in the young people. Well, it kind of works not so bad. if somebody's starting new, a new start type thing, but trying to bring that into an existing church that's already the way it is doesn't always work too good. Didn't Jesus say something about putting new wine in old wineskins? But anyway, uh, that doesn't always either. Hmm. Well, what I'm trying to say, we tried lots of different things. But why, how, what was our purpose in trying to do this? We wanted to try to get more people. Okay, I understand that. But, and we were trying to do it on our own power. We said, if we just get the right program, if we just get the right, do the right things, for a while we said, well, we got to have goals. We got to have mission statements. We got to have a purpose statement. Okay, but once you came up with it, what did you do anything with it? Well, the thing is we're trying to do it on our own power, trying to think that that particular thing was going to revitalize or rekindle things when we're doing it on our own power. It only goes so far. You need to get God involved. Put it in God's hands and say, God, I wish I knew the answers to, but I don't necessarily know all the answers either. But none of these other things have seemed to work. Maybe we need to get back to God and say, God, this is your church. We put it in your hands, and we ask for you to help us as we do this, and that we get back to, and we used to have a bishop that said, we need to keep the main thing the main thing. The main thing is preaching the gospel and telling people and making disciples of Jesus to learn about him and to grow in him. So as we look at that too about us as individuals, and maybe it's more about that. Not necessarily the church, but maybe for us. Maybe that's where it starts. That we need to rekindle the fire within us. And how do we do that? I think first off is through prayer. Praying and taking time to pray and to seek God and to know God and to be able to allow God to work in our lives. And a lot of that's through prayer. It doesn't mean we have to say long, drawn out prayers that go, but still, maybe the time that we do pray in the morning and in the evening, or maybe even throughout the day, where we don't have to say a long, elaborate prayer, but just something where we stay in touch with God. We say, thank you, God. If we see something special going on, or if we need something at that particular moment, Lord, help me do that. Help me as I go through this. It doesn't have to be a long and drawn out, but just something so that we're staying in touch with God. The other thing would be by having a devotional time, reading the Bible. We don't have to read it straight through like it's a novel or something like that, but take the time to look at what the Bible has to say and how it speaks to us, and to meditate on that. We've got lots of different devotional materials that can do that. We've got the Upper Room, one devotional, or another one's Our Daily Bread, or many other different ways that someone can learn. Of course, there's Bible studies, Sunday school classes, things like that. There's lots of different devotional books that we can use to help us in our faith. And of course, it's too by attending worship services and being part of the church and being actively involved in that can help us. And of course, music is another special thing, is taking time to either listen to music, maybe even sing. If you're by yourself and nobody else is around, hey, the Lord hears you. And that's what really counts anyway. So, hey, those things that we can do. Back when I was in college, we were part of a group called Campus Crusade for Christ. And we would, there was a bunch of young college students at the time, that we would meet once a week and have um, meetings and Bible studies. But we'd all get together at the beginning and we'd sing songs together. And of course, when I first went, these songs were new to me. I didn't know a lot of these songs because I had different. But there was one song that we would sing fairly often that was called "Pass It On." Now, at the time, was a fairly new song. This was around probably 1976 or something like that. And the song was written in 1969. So it was at that time a fairly new song that we were singing. But part of the words in that song said, "It only takes a spark to get a fire going, and soon all those around can warm up to its glowing. That's how it is with God's love once you've experienced it. You spread His love to everyone you want to pass it on. It only takes a spark to get a fire going." Maybe, as Paul said, rekindle the gift of God that is in you. Get that spark going again. Well, how do I kind of tie this back into something about mothers, don't I? After all, it's Mother's Day. Well, isn't that what mothers do? Mothers give us a spark sometimes. Mothers encourage us. Mothers push us to do what we need to do. They teach us how to be, help us with our faith development and those things. Mothers play a very important role in that. My own mother had three rambunctious boys that she had to raise. And I have to say that she kind of had the job of civilizing us. And that was quite a task to civilize us. We were kind of rough around the edges sometimes. Not to say Dad didn't help too, but Mom probably had most of that area covered. There was a few years back there was a book that was titled "Everything I Needed to Know I Learned in Kindergarten." Well, I don't know about that. I think maybe it's everything I needed to know I learned from my mother. I mean, the basic things like saying please and thank you, and how to do what you're supposed to do, to be honest and truthful, have a good work ethic, and those kind of. Also about our faith. Yeah, those are the things that all the other stuff we learn is good stuff. It has to be built on something to begin with. Yeah. Well, there's a passage in Proverbs 31 that speaks about the excellent woman. Right? Excellent woman who can find, it says, but later on it says, "Strength and dignity are her clothing, and she laughs at the time to come. She opens her mouth with wisdom, and the teaching of kindness is on her tongue. She looks well to the ways of her household and does not eat the bread of idleness. Her children rise up and call her blessed. Her husband too, and he praises her. Many women have done excellently, but you surpass them all." There we go. And a lot of our mothers are like that Proverbs 31 woman who did those things for us. We want to say to them, Happy Mother's Day. And now may we go knowing that God goes with us to guide us, lead us, and help us today and every day.